the point is for all of us, again, we need to roll up our sleeves and we need to go to work. It's going to take a dedicated effort on all of our parts to, in fact, overcome some of the challenges and find the solutions and get something done in behalf of ourselves and the rising generation. I've talked in terms of unprecedented partnerships with my administration. I'm prepared to partner with anybody. We'll have public-to-public partnerships, we'll have public and private partnerships, and we're going to empower the private sector to go out and do what they do best in a free market that we have here in America. But we need to work together and make sure that we are partnering. In doing so, I think there are three principles that we need to keep in mind. They're simple principles, they're basic principles, they're things you're going to say, no kidding. These are so basic. But we sometimes forget the basics. And we need to get back to the basics if we're going to have, I think, appropriate outcomes. The first one is, in fact, communication. Communication is difficult under the best of circumstances. All you need to do is talk to families, husbands and wives. You can talk to my wife and find out that she says, gee, you don't talk to me. You don't tell me you love me enough. We don't communicate like we should do. And we need to, in fact, understand the importance of communication. We need to tell each other we love each other more than we do. And we have an appreciation for what we stand for. We're not going to agree on everything, but that doesn't mean we don't have love and appreciation one for another, and that is expressed through communication. Communication is, in my mind, dialogue. That's two-way communication. And I think for most of us, the good Lord has given us 2 ears and only 1 mouth, which means we probably have to listen twice as much as we speak. And it's we need to understand what other people feel. Steve Covey, a good friend of mine, some of you have heard of Steve Covey and talking about the 7 habits of successful people, talks about that the first part is for us to seek to understand before we seek to be understood. I need to understand your points of view and your issues before I want you to understand mine and put that in context. That's part of communication. It's a challenge to do that. It's a challenge, in fact, to understand. But that should be the goal, is one of understanding. And, the idea of walking in each other's moccasins for a few miles so we can understand the issues, I think, is a good one for us as we talk to communicate, or try to communicate. Last part on communication. And again, this is something for me, and I think for all of us to appreciate and understand. As we communicate and work with each other, I would hope that we are careful and slow to do something or anything that will be offensive. We need to be slow to offend. I know sometimes that happens inadvertently, but we ought to be careful to not offend each other. But I would say just as equally important is we ought to be very slow to take offense. It is very easy for us to get our feathers ruffled and to be upset about something that somebody says or does and feel like that's somehow a slight, even though it was given maybe in an inadvertent way. So let's, as we work together in communication, let's be careful, slow to offend, be careful, but equally as slow to take offense. We're all trying to work together for the improvement and betterment of our people and those we represent. Second, after communication, I've got cooperation. Again, it's so basic, it's so intuitive for all of us that we can accomplish much more working together than we can working apart. I don't think we want to be isolationists. Again, I respect the traditions and cultures of the tribes and of my forefathers, my pioneer ancestors. Those are things that we need to respect and appreciate. But we have opportunities, in fact, to work together to improve the future. And I think it's important for us to not forget the past, not forget our heritage, but to look for opportunities as we cooperate together to find better opportunities for improvement. It may take some outside the box thinking. I mentioned education. What was appropriate and right yesterday is questionable today. It may be wrong tomorrow if we want to have success with providing economic development and jobs. We've got to have more education, different set of skills, different skills than my parents and my grandparents had. My children are going to have better skills than I've got, and they're going to need to have that if they're going to compete in the marketplace. So this cooperation, this willingness to work together starts with a desire. We need to have a desire, in fact, to work together. Again, I know that you're here today because you have that desire of working together, of creating better understanding and finding a pathway forward that will improve our situation. I also believe as we work together, it should be with the outcome that is mutually beneficial. It should be, in fact, a proverbial win-win. It can't be just good for Utah and not for the tribes. It can't be just good for the tribes and not for Utah. It should be, in fact, the proverbial win-win, mutually beneficial for all of us. And there's no reason why, in every instance, on every issue, that we cannot find that win-win. So I look forward to working with you in a better spirit of cooperation to find better outcomes that are good for all of us. And last but not least, and this maybe is a little bit of a tougher challenge for all of us. I know it is for me, it is for, I think, politicians. And that is to have vision. To see beyond just today and see really tomorrow. For politicians, it's the issue for us becomes the next election. I'm concerned about whether I'll get votes in the next election. And sometimes that gets in the way of having a long-term vision for where we need to go as a people. Vision is hard and sometimes complicated. And I'll just give you an example that I see every day. And it's just up the street here, just a couple of miles, and it's our state capitol building here in Utah. Now, most of you have probably been there and seen that beautiful building. It was just 100 years ago that then Governor Spry said to the people of Utah, we need to have a capitol building. We are one of only about 3 states in America that did not have a capitol building, a place for the government to come and congregate and create the laws and rules and needed for society to in fact move forward. And so he said, we need to develop a capitol building. They put together a group of people to analyze that. And at the time, the population of Utah in its entirety was less than 400,000 people. We're approaching 3 million now, but there's a big area geographically with just a few people. The recommendation that came out of this group of leaders here in Utah said, let's build something very big, very magnificent, and very ornate. And if you've been to our Capitol building, you've seen it's one of the most beautiful Capitol buildings, I'm here to tell you, in America. I have people stop by my office all the time, say we've gone all around America. Our goal is to hit every capital of all the 50 states, and your Capitol building is as beautiful as any. And it's larger than most any other building, Capitol building in America. Well, we built something magnificent, but 100 years ago, it was a little bit controversial because people would say, gosh, why are we building such a big building? There's just a few of us that live here in the state of Utah. And the people involved in this said, the reason we want to build a big, magnificent building is not because of what we are today, but what we can become tomorrow. This state has great potential to become something magnificent, something large, something ornate, something that will become an example to the rest of this country. So let's build something with some vision that will allow us to become something better than what we are today. Now that was true vision by our fathers, our forefathers here in Utah in building our Capitol building. So having vision, that was not an easy thing to do. And the second part of it is equally tough. They had courage because it was controversial. They had budgeted about $1.3 million to build the building. Doesn't seem like a lot today. But $1.3 million, the legislature cut that from $1.3 million to just $1 million. And so the visionaries said, we need to go out and raise additional money. They raised private money to come up with a difference. It cost about $2 million at the time to build the building. But they were not, they were undaunted. They said, in spite of the obstacles, we will go out and get it done. They had the vision and they had the courage, in spite of the naysayers, to go out and get it done. So as we talk about these things, I hope that we think in terms of not just today and what we are today, but we think in terms of what we can become. That we have vision, and hopefully we have the courage to implement that vision and make it better as we go forward. I have great respect for you and for what you do and how you do it. And I'm glad to see this summit becoming a tradition. And again, I think we have opportunities as we work together to improve the lives of all Utahns, the lives of our Native Americans. I think we can be an example to other states, other parts of the country, of how to do things, of how people can come together, setting aside some differences and for the good of the whole, accomplish great and wonderful things. Let me just conclude, if I could, by reading to you part of a poem that I think kind of says and sums up what I'm trying to say as we work together. Again, our theme is we come together to make a difference. And this poem was entitled, That Lives in Us, by a poet by the name of Romy. And it says this in part. If you put your hands on the oar with me, they will never harm another. And they will come to find they hold everything that you want. If you put your hands on this oar with me, they would no longer lift anything to your mouth that might wound your precious land, that sacred earth that is your body. If you put your soul against this oar with me, the power that made the universe will enter your sinew from a source not outside your limbs, but from a holy realm that lives in us. I believe we have opportunities to do great things if we'll work together. I look forward to putting my hands on the oar with you and with all of us as we seek to find the best path forward for our people and for our nations. Thank you for being here. God bless us all.